So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new news roundup video, and as I say in every news roundup video, we've got a lot to cover, and I mean that because I haven't done a news roundup video since last Friday, and there are so many little updates along the way that I've got to A, catch up on, but B, some new very interesting stories that this is most likely going to be a very, very jam-packed news roundup, and it could be the last news roundup you see for a little while on the channel because I'm going away on honeymoon. Don't worry, there's still going to be content on the channel. However, if there's any crazy news that drops, just know that I'm literally not here to cover it. But I will be back by the time CinemaCon rolls around and hopefully the Superman official trailer. Who knows what the blessing and curse will do to this channel, but, you know, back on track here. We've got quite a bit to get through today. So as always, I do want to let you know the video is timestamped with different stories, so you can skip around if you want to, but I do recommend watching all the video to, of course, stay up to date with all of my takes. Would greatly appreciate a like on this video if you go on to enjoy it. Takes 2 seconds, and hey, apparently 52% of you in 2024 weren't subscribed to the channel despite going back again and again, so maybe today is the day you might check out that subscribe button, and who knows, you might feel like coming on board. But starting off a bit soft at the beginning as we progressively get into, you know, some news, let's just put it that way. I covered this in a live stream. I know not everyone can attend my live stream, so obviously I want to cover it here, but we got a couple of behind-the-scenes looks at Superman. One featuring Rachel Brosnahan's Lois and Eddie Gathegi's Mr. Terrific at the LuthorCorp beach encampment, whatever you want to call it, that we saw in the trailer and also the teaser for the teaser. And we got one of Maria Gabriela de Frias, the engineer, just kind of KO'd on the floor there. So let's quickly go through the takeaways of these first two images. First of all, I want to say, Gunn, please can we get more of this? I mean, it's just behind the scenes photos, little crumbs, and I'm sure you've got thousands of images. But either way, at the LuthorCorp encampment, I saw some people point out in the background, oh my god, is that Lex Luthor's war suit? I don't think it is, guys. What I think this really is a little look at those Lex Troopers that we saw in the trailer. I mean, granted, we're assuming that they're Lex Troopers, but I think that's the most reasonable and logical conclusion. But what I like here is there is a bit of a pinky purpley kind of green color to the suits. So, you know, you got some of those Luthor colors there. Now, as for, like, this in general, I think Lois needs to sneak into the camp to kind of get some evidence or whatever's going on with Luthor in this film, maybe to help out Clark or Superman with what Luthor's trying to do to take him down, and Eddie Gathegi escorts her into the camp, and we see from the trailer that he's got his T-spheres in the air, is creating a little bubble shield as the Lex Troopers fire on them, and Lois is kind of like, oh my god, what's going on? Now, as for the engineer, I saw some people say, oh my god, she's dead. She's dead! How could they do that? Like, would they... really? You really think James Gunn's just gonna upload a picture and, like, confirm that the engineer is dead? No. I mean, what this really is that she's just completely KO'd here. Actually, if you go back and look at filming, you kind of see Superman in the stadium, like, kind of do that rotational kind of smack down on Ultraman, and you see the engineer in the exact same pose on the floor. So I think at this point in time, you know, she's just knocked out. They're kind of maintaining her position for maybe the next shot kind of thing. Now, up next, ladies and gentlemen, in the realms of Superman, I'm going to toss in this rumor here, and I do want to say this is a rumor. Please take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it as a fact. Please, please don't. This is from Jeff Snyder. I know people are like, why are you bringing it up? Look, things are sometimes hit and miss, and if I don't bring it up, people like, Boba, why didn't you talk about that anyway? So on the off chance or whatever, I'm going to talk about it. Plus, it does bring up a relevant conversation surrounding a character we've heard absolutely nothing about when it comes to Superman. So, apparently Jeff Snyder is saying that there's some major casting surprises in Superman, and one of them is most likely Jor-El. And I don't know how, like, this, like, I don't know if it was Jeff Snyder who floated around the name Tom Cruise, but really, I don't know about that, especially when Gunn said, you know, with the whole Kurt Russell thing, back in 2023. God, this feels like yesterday to me. Like, what? We're in 2025 now? I remember making those Kurt Russell videos. But he said back then, I just answered this to someone else, but no, love Kurt. And although the Moors of Krypton are certainly different from, I don't know what happened to my accent there, are certainly different than ours, I'm not sure I see him as the first-time father of a newborn. Now, ever since he said that, I had this idea in my head that even though he didn't, like, really outright confirm anything there, he basically implied something that, sure, I could be reading into a bit too much, but he said that he didn't see Kurt Russell as the first-time father of a newborn, basically saying that he's maybe a bit too old for the Jor-El that he has in mind for that of a newborn baby Kal-El. Ever since then, I've been saying, how cool would it be if, for a change, instead of getting like a bit of an older Jor-El, there would be this new kind of like comparison and layers to casting a Jor-El in the Fortress of Solitude that is basically the same age as David Corenswet himself. There's this almost sadness, right, that if you have a scene between Superman looking at the AI, whatever version of Jor-El being projected or something, and he sees that, hey, this man was basically, looking my age, and this was what he looked like as a first-time dad to me when Krypton exploded. He could kind of, it's not like, hey, there's a man with gray hair and gray beard or whatever, and I'm not against those kind of Jor-El depictions, and I'm not saying everyone's been gray, but you get what I'm trying to say. There's this weird kind of sadness almost to it if Clark was to look at, hey, you're literally my age. And that's kind of, I don't know how else to articulate it. Now, having said that, just because Gunn said what he said, it doesn't mean that we're even getting Jor-El at all. I know that sounds crazy, but I've always liked to toss that theory out there. We haven't heard anything about Jor-El, but then again, there is also a theory that I very much so believe that Jor-El's just been kept so under lock and key with regards to the casting, because it's the kind of thing that they could have easily done behind closed doors rather, and, they could have got quite a cool actor for it, and it's just such a minimal role that it's the kind of thing that just doesn't really get out. But Jeff Snyder is claiming that it could be a really big casting, and I've already seen people say it's going to be Henry Cavill!
Stop right there, criminal scum!
But before we move on, let me know what you think about the whole Jor-El thing. I've also wondered, going back to what I was teasing a second ago, like, what if we don't get a traditional Jor-El? And I know this sounds crazy, but the way that Clark is holding Kellex, like, holding and crying, holding his hand. This Fortress robot is extremely dear to him, and I thought it would also be quite a bold take to have, for once, Jor-El only be portrayed through that of a, expressionless robot. There's this, you're so close, but yet so far away to the connection of that of your father from Krypton. You have this AI almost consciousness of Jor-El that this Fortress robot can conjure up, as of when needed to have a conversation with Clark, but it's not got that human familiarity to that of what an AI hologram projection can provide. So when Lex Luthor, Ultraman, and the Engineer go in there, and clearly Lex is like, yeah, wreck that robot, and Clark gets there in time to see his robot dying. I know some of you won't like this idea, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be against the idea that the only connection Clark has had to his Kryptonian father is through the AI presented through this robot. And I don't know, man, there's something so bittersweet about that. I do want to say it's also completely possible that, this Fortress robot is also just very dear to Clark, and that's why he's very sad that it's getting wrecked, because it's one of the few pieces and links to Kryptonian heritage that he has, in addition to Jor-El. But I don't know. I'm open to any and all ideas. Now, of course, the next big thing from Superman is CinemaCon. And this is me kind of coping at the same time, because obviously with me going away on honeymoon, I don't really expect mad. Okay, I'm jinxing it, aren't I? The blessing and curse is like, you wait, man. You wait. I'm going to drop news the second you get on your flight to America. But I don't expect crazy things in the next, week or so. Until, we get to CinemaCon. We know James Gunn is attending CinemaCon, apparently with the cast as well, for hopefully, I get asked this all the time, but I've been saying this for the longest time, I absolutely think that the official trailer will be dropping at CinemaCon. It's the perfect time to do it. I know Superman Day is coming in April on the 18th, but what I could kind of offer a middle ground with, we have DC Film News saying here that, as previously reported by The Hollywood Reporter, they plan on making a splash at CinemaCon. I expect that we're going to get, the trailer, maybe some press questions being answered, some teases for Superman, that kind of thing. But will the public get to see the official trailer as of April 1st? Because I know a lot of people like, Boba, do you really think that they're going to drop the Superman official trailer on April Fool's Day? And I'm like, that shouldn't really matter. But the more you think about it, the more it's like, yeah, like, what if there is this weird kind of like stigma with dropping it on April Fools? I don't know, but the reason why I wanted to explore this nevertheless is, what if it's one of those kind of events, where they show trailers at like D23, but the public doesn't get to see that trailer for potentially a while after that? Now, granted, this wouldn't take a long time, but getting to the point here, what if at CinemaCon, those who attend CinemaCon get to see the trailer, but the public, they don't release it for us to see on YouTube, on the DC Warner Brothers channel, until Superman Day, a couple of weeks later on April 18th. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping that, hey, obviously people who go to CinemaCon, press, theater owners, all of that good stuff get to see it, and maybe we get to see it in the next 12 to 24 hours after that online. Now, as for The Hollywood Reporter saying a little while ago now that they plan on making a splash at CinemaCon, people are taking that to mean, what if they do more than just show an official trailer? That's totally possible, because, Warner Brothers might genuinely go and think, hey, let's make a splash. So, official Superman trailer. Hey, since we're at CinemaCon, hey, people who are like what this con is about, here's our next movie, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Obviously, we don't have a trailer to show you, but here's your first look at Millie Alcock as Kara in the Supergirl suit for our next movie, so that's a bit of a splash. But then I kind of think, wait, would they want to take... I'm not saying that these would really compete with the Superman official trailer, as that would be the main buzz, but do they just kind of want all eyes on Superman, so they wouldn't really show other things? Or would they be like, hey, yeah, here's the official trailer, but here's a, still of Millie Alcock's Supergirl suit, or her in the Supergirl suit, and here's a couple of other things, so here's our overall splash. Again, I don't want to get your hopes up, but never say never. Now, speaking of Superman, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we get into a bit more of the concerning news. I mean, I don't know why I did that, but really, this is more of the recent news that had a lot of people talking. So from DC Film News here, summarizing a bit of a report from Puck News, James Gunn's Superman has almost, quote, almost incalculable importance, end quote, to Warner Brothers Discovery, and there is reportedly genuine fear. It's a tool. Genuine fear of the film studio going the way of 20th Century Fox, which was acquired by Disney in 2019. From one Warner Brothers veteran, an essential element of the stock price is believing that the IP of DC is meaningful. David Zaslav's bet big that they can show the world that the DC IP can have real value. Superman is the first movie. That will set the tone. They have a tremendous amount riding on it. Now, this has ignited a conversation, but to me, I was kind of surprised because this is like something really people have been talking about for a long time. Everyone's always been saying, oh, Superman will, it's make or break. And I've always said I don't think it's literally make or break unless it really, I know I'm kind of being a dead horse here because I felt like I've said this 1,000 times. But yes, if Superman made Shazam! Fury of the Gods money, 136 million, however much it made, that would be catastrophically bad. And oh my God, that would be so bad. On top of like Warner Brothers taking L's here and there, like most recently the game studios closing, losing 100 mil on the Wonder Woman game. Like Mickey 17 apparently isn't going to be doing as well as they wanted it to do. Even though they have hits here, like video game-wise, Hogwarts Legacy did well. Look at Barbie, for example. Like, they can succeed, but at the same time, like, Warner Brothers need the DCU to do well. But at the same time, if it doesn't do as well as they wanted it to do, but not as bad, catastrophically bad, like, so that would be really much less than even Black Adam and Aquaman 2 and stuff like that, then I don't think they would outright be like, everything's over. They still have like Lanterns, They still have Supergirl. Like, they would still, like, these are in production right now. They're still going to release. It's just they might change their strategy a little bit if Superman, like, they might not make as many movies in the future that they were planning to make if Superman somehow only made 200 million, which isn't going to happen. It will make more than that. But the question of will it make enough to please them, even if their expectations are at a place of what I've always said, I truly expect Warner Brothers to feel like that they are expecting this movie to not make as much as they would like. So my ballpark has always been that if they make anywhere over 700 million, so the Batman Part 1 made 773 million, if it went past that, that is a home run W. Obviously, yes, I'm not stupid. They want over $1 billion. Of course, any studio would, right? But with the context of the past, Warner Brothers, DCEU, goodwill, you need to gain back from the pub, all of this stuff, I think they would be like, that is still, like, yeah, this movie should have probably done better, especially the context of it releasing in the same month as Jurassic World, Rebirth, Fantastic Four. They're all got to self-cannibalize each other's box office. Do you see what I mean? I'm just saying they would be dumb to not have the thought in their minds that, like, okay, this movie, let's just say it is really good, should probably earn a bit more money, but we're kind of expecting it to not make as much as we want. So yeah, if it made near the Batman Part 1 levels, that would be great. If it made over it, again, home run. So that's why my ballpark is, what, like around 700 million? I know some of you will be like, well, Boba, they need more than that. Like, trust me, that would be a win. That also means that the movie still did well in the grand scheme of things, and hopefully if it was received well critically and by the audience, people will then turn up more and more for the next movie, like Supergirl. It's all of that context. So this conversation that's coming out right now is really what's been happening ever since 2023 when the DCU got announced. The pressure on Superman is quite immense, obviously. You know, I'm not trying to downplay it here. I'm just saying that I don't think the whole universe will be over if they made 670 million or something like that. I still feel like they would pursue things. But yes, no matter what way, this is still a benchmark test, you know, internally and everything. I mean, we've even had James Gunn post this image yesterday saying, Peter Safran, David Corenswet, and I had a great time speaking in front of the wonderful folks at Warner Brothers Discovery. And people have been asking me what I thought this was. The only way I could put this in, here's our slate refresher like we had publicly for the press, but even more transparent probably for the internal side of things at Warner Brothers. All of the, you know, big cheeses and whatnot, anyone who basically matters, this would have been a bit of a talk. You bring in your kind of poster guy for the movie that you have coming out soon, David Corenswet, and it would be about optimism about everything you have planned. Here's a great movie that we made. We're really excited for this to release. We have a lot of passion for the DCU. We've got Supergirl, and, you know, they're going to be giving all of these details that we would never hear about what Craig Gillespie is doing with Millie Alcock, how well Lanterns is going, all of this stuff. Basically, I think it would have just been a big hype, somewhat internal, I don't know if I want to quite call it an internal review, but it's kind of like a, hey, here's what we're doing, you know, like, even though the company knows what they're doing, but it's still, you know, as you do sometimes in jobs, you have a bit of like a reconvening of things, and you want to make people smile a bit more about, or even feel more easier about how the future is going with one of the biggest things that your company is dealing with. And so I think that's basically what this was. And they brought David Corenswet along, obviously, because he's literally the guy, Superman, in their big launching point for this new enterprise that they're going on. But having said that, there's even more news that came out of nowhere. So we also had from Puck News that Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav is reportedly considering replacing Warner Brothers Pictures co-chiefs Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi. Zaslav has been said to be leaning towards Peter Safran, one of the co-CEOs of DC Studios, as a potential successor. Now, I've had lots of people say, like, Boba, what do you think about this? And, you know, there was even talk of, like, they could be leaning towards both James Gunn and Peter Safran to lead Warner Brothers. I mean, I don't think that should happen at all. That would spread them way too thin. Peter Safran, I can understand that he could manage a bit of the business side as per his role as the co-CEO of DC Studios while also doing business stuff for Warner Brothers overall. I've seen that there's mixed opinions on it. I don't really know how to feel myself. It's one of those situations where it's like, okay, Peter Safran has been successful in launching like a multi-billion-dollar, the Conjuring franchise in movie format. He produced Aquaman, made over $1 billion, but then again, people are bringing up, okay, but there's Aquaman 2, there's Shazam 2. So it's kind of like hit, miss, I'm not saying he's got a terrible, portfolio or anything. It's more just, I think I've seen some people bring up, has he got like the credentials on paper to be like, yes, this is the man who can prove that he can bring Warner Brothers over that of Michael D. Luca and Pamela Abdy to the success and, better days in the future that they really need to get. And it's not that he doesn't, but it's not that he really does, and it's not like he's screaming that he does. So that's why it's kind of like, okay. I don't really know what to think about it, like, as a result of that. That's at least where I'm at. So I don't honestly have much to offer on this other than what I've already said, but I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments about Zaslav looking at Safran to maybe run Warner Brothers. Now, moving into some Lanterns news here. A little while ago now, we had from Variety that Nicole Ari Parker has been cast as Jon Stewart's mother in Lanterns. So I don't know really where to dive into this so much. I mean, I think, we're going to have John, like, when we dive into these characters, considering we're quite far into the DCU, I think people have expected some kind of, like, more context to how Jordan, his past, possibly flashbacks. But I think this actually isn't super surprising the more you think about it, because since Jon Stewart is a trainee Lantern, it makes sense that maybe, like, Jon Stewart's family, they would get into that a little bit to understand the character more, and also be like, hey, what are you doing now? Will he be divulging that he's literally, in training with a power ring and stuff like that? I don't know what to expect, but very interesting stuff there. And to bring up Jeff Snyder again, this is a rumor as of right now, but he is claiming that Jason Ritter has been cast in Lanterns as Sheriff Kelly McDonald's husband. And it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know she'd have a husband. And I say that because this makes things interesting now, because apparently Garrett Dillahunt, who's playing William Mason, the conspiracy-minded man, the guy who could be behind whatever the heck's going on in this town, his wife is Porna Jagannathan's character. I believe her character is Zoe, and I think Jon Stewart gets involved with her in a bit of an affair. And I think we also heard that Hal Jordan will have some kind of romantic thing with Sheriff Kelly, but now we're hearing that Sheriff Kelly has a husband. So there's two affairs going. Like, what is it with these Lantern boys? You don't go into a town looking to root out evil and solve this murder in the American heartland, in Nebraska, maybe Blue Valley, maybe not, and be like, no, you know what, John, you're thinking what I'm thinking? In brightest day and blackest night, no affair shall escape my sight. The bad jokes aside here, I know people are kind of annoyed about that because they're wondering about, okay, what about Carol? What about Carol Ferris? I don't know, but either way, Jason Ritter, his character, it'd be pretty nuts if this is such random speculation, but what if, as he's the sheriff's husband, what if he secretly has something to do with what William Mason is doing in the town and the sheriff doesn't know about that? Now, Future Boba here, very briefly, credit where credit's due to Jeff Snyder, because Variety are now reporting just the day afterwards that Lanterns HBO's DC series casts Jason Ritter. We get a little bit more of an explanation here, where it says Ritter will play Billy Mason, described as a good-looking charmer who does his father's bidding. Capitalizing on his family's reputation, he clings to his small-town ego and has everything to lose. So his father would be William Mason. Now, in real life, he's only 15 years older than Jason Ritter. So I don't know if this still means that what Jeff Snyder said about Billy Mason being the husband to Sheriff Kelly is still true. I mean, perhaps it is, but he's still William Mason's son. By the way, you can tell that this guy who has everything to lose will probably be helping out his dad with some of the shady community secrets that are supposedly emerging. We've also had, speaking of Garrett Dillahunt playing William Mason, and again, right now, the only theories we have is, is something going on with him? Could he be one of the bad guys that eventually we learn more about? He did post this video to his Instagram, I believe it was, saying, good to see the kind of talented folks at Fractured FX again for my latest project. You know I love a tight rubber suit every once in a while. This one will fit like a glove. So they're basically suiting him up there. Now, you could just be like, oh, this is nothing. It could just be they're doing something makeup-wise. But, no, he said rubber suit. They're making a suit for him. So what does that mean? I've seen people be like, oh, could it be Black Hand, Boba? You know, they're going to do some kind of, even if it's not an all-out, prelude to Blackest Night, it could still be something happen. Like, and I've entertained that in where, I don't think they're going to go crazy and actually do Blackest Night, but they could do the beginnings of, while Necron won't be released, you could have this, like, town dedicated, like, committed to trying to release Necron, and they are making sacrifices and things like that, creepy ass stuff, and you could have basically the Black Hand role put onto William Mason, and that could be some nuts stuff. And as I always say, adaptations don't copy and paste, so I'm not saying we're gonna have, I really don't think we're gonna out of nowhere have all of these main heroes of the DCU be flying around as corpse versions of themselves with Black Lantern rings. No, I'm just saying they could do something within that lore, like a mini chapter of it with the beginning stages of Black Hand trying to do something and release it, but ultimately he's thwarted. Now, in related Lanterns news, we have Nathan Fillion confirming that Guy Gardner is a jerk in Superman. Surprise, surprise there. You don't have to be good to be a Green Lantern. You just have to be fearless. I think if he has a superpower, it might be his overconfidence in that he thinks he could just take on Superman. He can't. I saw people being like, what's he mean? He doesn't understand the character. You don't just have to be fearless. You need willpower. It's like, I think he's just talking about, Hal Jordan, like the man without fear kind of thing, which is a very good thing for a Green Lantern. You don't want to have fear, obviously. But yes, willpower. I think Nathan Fillion's just talking in general here, and he's just mainly on about how Guy Gardner is going to be a bit of a douche. And that wouldn't remotely surprise me in this film. And I just wonder if a similar moment might happen like this one day where Batman just knocks him the F out. Now, one of the most interesting stories today, for me, I know I've saved it till last, but I think I'm going to dedicate more time into this for a Batman discussion series video I have coming out soon. Is this maybe more fuel for fire with that? So what I mean here is basically the Batman co-writer Peter Craig on the theory that Riddler's father was the murdered reporter Edward Elliot. We have the Hollywood Reporter interviewer saying, the Batman certainly has some of the same DNA as Dope Thief. It seemed like that movie was heavily implying that the Riddler's father was the murdered reporter Edward Elliot. Craig smiles. They had similar characteristics, and the Riddler's first name was also Edward. The differing last names could easily be explained, but the overall idea would be that Falcone likely had a hand in creating both of these orphans, Bruce Wayne and Edward Nashton, as well as their alter egos Batman and the Riddler. Did I misread the movie, or was that takeaway quite purposeful? So, this is what Peter Craig says. The way you're reading it would make some people, including Matt Reeves, very happy. It's the level of detail that was certainly discussed and thought about. But some of that is going to spoil what I know is continuing forward. So just to interject here, it's like he, kind of checked himself mid-sentence, because it's like, this is the level of detail that was certainly discussed and thought about, but some of that is going to spoil what I know is continuing forward. And so, he continues, there was a glitch on IMDb. It looks like I'm working on the sequel right now, but I'm not. It's still mad, and Mattson Tomlin came on to co-write. But let's just say that those ideas you're bringing up are exactly the level of detail people should be looking at, because it's a meticulously wrought world that Matt Reeves is building there. He's incredibly rigorous and incredibly detail-oriented, and that was a part of the fun of working on the Batman with him. So, I agree, Matt Reeves has outright said, the seeds are all in the first film for what I'm doing in this sequel, pertaining to this new case that Batman is on, pertaining to this deeper corruption. We here on the channel have evaluated every possible seed that I think could be applicable, and one of the ones that stands out to most people, without even having to think much about it, is the Hush Easter egg. But now this has just made me think, okay, but what does this mean? What do you mean? Is this inferring that there is going to be a larger reveal that Edward Nashton is indeed the son of Edward Elliot, the reporter, and so, the reporter Edward Elliot, who got murdered by Falcone, doesn't have a son, Tommy Elliot. So, in this adaptation, adaptations don't copy and paste, they're doing the kind of adaptation, in a sense, of the whole Hush Riddler thing, and how Hush is the Riddler, but then that would imply maybe Paul Dano would come back for the second movie's villain to be Hush, or at some point, because this could even pertain to the Gotham Loves a Comeback story. But this is what I mean. This is where it all goes off the deep end for me. I don't think they're going to bring back Paul Dano right away for the second movie to be like, to have a comeback story as Hush and for it to be revealed that, yes, he was the son of Edward Elliot. And the more I kind of go down this path of thinking about this, it's like, why wouldn't this have really have been revealed in the first movie? You had Riddler poised up doing all this stuff in general. And you would have thought when the bomb was sent to Bruce Wayne and Alfred opened it, that if there was a Hush element truly to the Riddler in the first movie, and they were saying there is no Thomas Elliot, the Thomas Elliot of this universe is Edward Nashton, you would have thought there would have been a bit more of like a gloat in that letter or something to Bruce Wayne, because obviously a big part about Hush is, going up against Bruce Wayne. I feel like maybe, I will explore this a bit more in my discussion series video, but maybe we're thinking too far into this, but maybe not, because he literally says that the idea of Edward Nashton, the Riddler, being the son of Edward Elliot is the kind of level of detail that was certainly discussed and thought about. Okay, well, that doesn't confirm anything. Fair enough. But then he immediately says afterwards, but some of that is going to spoil what I know is continuing forward. So while he's not saying what you just said to me, interviewer, is literally what is going to happen or be revealed in the sequel, but if I kind of talk too much more about this, it is going to spoil what I know is continuing forward, which does somewhat imply, I think, that there is some kind of further knowledge to be learned here with regards to the whole Edward. Like, I think the bottom line takeaway for me is the Edward Elliot thing is indeed a seed that will be continued on in the sequel movie. But there is something to this, but I don't know what it is. Bat Family, I would love to know your thoughts on this, but I'm going to have to wrap this one up, otherwise I will be going on for a long time. But yeah, I get super excited because the seeds for the Batman Part 2 are in the first film. We're wanting to learn more about the second film, the plot, and what the heck could be going on there. And now we've got kind of this really weird, ambiguous tease from Peter Craig, who may have been, because Matt Reeves, by the way, even though the script isn't complete, he would have told Peter Craig the overall plan he had for the trilogy. And guess what? Matt Reeves, for years and years and years, has had it in his head what his idea of movie 1, 2, and 3 is going to be. But it's obviously a different thing putting pen to paper and actually writing out the script. So Peter Craig, I do believe, knows what the general idea of the second movie's plot will be, and that's why he went on to say, but some of that is going to spoil what I know is continuing forward, so maybe I should be quiet, actually. Oh, God. That kind of vibe. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end this news roundup here. A very, very long one, as usual. I love the rambling. I know some of you love the rambling, so I will continue rambling. But unfortunately, not for a minute, because I am going on honeymoon, so this is probably the last news dose you'll get from me for a little while. Again, I do have videos going up, but just bear with me, and I'll be back before you know it. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on absolutely everything. Please consider leaving a like on this video if you did enjoy it. Consider subscribing if you're brand new here. Hopefully the blessing and curse doesn't smite me too much while I'm away, but I know I keep saying it, just bear with me if something crazy does drop. But if you want to know my thoughts on anything too crazy, you can always follow me on Twitter or Instagram or something like that. Links are in the description as always. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.